Good evening, everybody. Today is the 17th of June, as according to the old calendar. I am, of course, Ritter Lazar. Welcome to Voices of British Orthodoxy. We have a lot of saints today, but before we do get into the saints, I should probably point out that this video might not be promoted due to the fact that that the brother of our saint on the left, Saint Botolph, has a name that is potentially censorable. So we'll see what happens when we upload this, but given that this is just reading the lives of saints and one of them happens to have the same name as a certain Austrian painter, I do hope that this, I guess you could say, waffle at the beginning will be enough to avoid ye old censorships. Also, I just realised this particular icon is from Holy Trinity Monastery. Anyway, let's get right into it. Saint Botolph and Adolf, and they are from the 7th century. Saints Botolph and Adolf were brothers from England who entered a monastery in Belgium. Saint Adolf went on to be consecrated Bishop of Utrecht, and nothing further is known of him. Saint Botolph returned to England, where, according to the Anglo-Saxon Chronicle, he founded and was first abbot of a monastery at Aachen in Suffolk, which was destroyed by the Danes in the 9th century. Saint Botolph reposed in AD 700. There are over 70 churches, including 4 at the gates of the city of London, dedicated to him. His entry in the group chat goes in as follows. Saint Botolph and his brother Saint Adolf. Saint Botolph, also Botolph, is one of the most venerated saints in Eastern England and one of the greatest English missionaries in the 7th century. This wonderful saint has for many centuries been venerated not only throughout England, but also in many other European countries. Over 70 ancient churches in England are dedicated to Saint Botolph, and this fact indicates a special love of the English faithful for the saint. Botolph was born in 615 in the Kingdom of East Anglia, and so was among the first to be baptized there. The younger brother of Botolph, named Adolf, is venerated as a saint as well. Both brothers were both probably related to the royal family. One of the East Anglian kings soon lapsed from the faith, but the Lord's providence, an Irish missionary, St. Fursey, was sent to these lands, and he founded a monastery at Birr Castle in Norfolk. The brothers were educated at this monastery and were tonsured monks there. In 640, the pagan king Penda of Mercia attacked East Anglia, and the holy brothers had to move to Sussex in southern England, where they lived for some time at the monastery in Beauchamp, which had been founded by another Irishman, St. Dickel. Or Dicel. In 647, Botolph visited a monastery in Gaul, where he gained experience in spiritual life and received excellent preparation. Returning to his native England, the saint undertook an extensive missionary work after the death of the pious King Anna of East Anglia in 654, at the hands of a pagan king. St. Botolph, in memory of Anna, built his most famous monastery in the place now known as Ikenhoe. Nearly all researchers identify this with the hamlet of Aachen in northeastern Suffolk, where the very ancient former monastery church of St. Botolph survives to this day. In the 7th century, this monastery became one of the largest and most influential spiritual centres in England. In Aachen, St. Botolph struggled much against the demons who dwelled in the area in great numbers and vexed him continually. By the power of the sign of the cross through his austere ascetic life, the Venerable One vanquished them and drove them away from the area. Abbot Botolph gathered around him many brethren, instructed them in the spiritual life, and became famous as a wise and learned mentor. Everybody saw a loving and caring faith in him. He himself cultivated the land in Aachen, and thanks to his labours, the formerly swampy soil around Aachen became very fertile. During his life, St. Botolph was loved all over England for his love, wisdom, miracles of healing, prophecies, and for driving out evil spirits. He was a good example for his spiritual children in all things according to his life. All loved Botolph. He always was humble, modest, friendly, and mild in communication. Proved the truth of his sermons by the example of his life. He taught his monks the rules of Christian perfection and the decrees of the Church Fathers. He thanked God in both good and sorrowful times alike, knowing that he makes everything for the good of those who love him. The saint excelled in extreme mercy, poverty, and kindness. Once he gave all the monastery food supplies to the poor, the brethren started complaining, but at once they saw boats moving towards the monastery on the river, filled with gifts from generous donors. The saint did not stay only at Icon. He made many missionary journeys, founding numerous churches and monasteries. There were many navigable rivers in East Anglia, so it was easy for him to travel, and whenever Botolph stopped, he always preached the gospel. That is why many churches dedicated to St. Botolph stand on riverbanks. They were originally founded by him or his disciples. There are many holy sites associated with this glorious saint in Norfolk, Suffolk, Essex, and even to the south in Kent and Sussex, and to the north in Lincolnshire. On his missionary trips, Botolph reached even the north and west of England, where he, for example, founded the monastery of Wenlock in Shropshire. By the end of his life, Icon became so famous that priests, abbots, learned men, and ordinary people flocked to the centre from all corners of the country. A tireless missionary, wonder worker, and father of monks, St. Botolph reposed in 680 after a long illness. His brother St. Aldulf reposed in the same year. Veneration of St. Botolph as a saint began right after his death. Our next saint of the day is St. Breville, and the date is unknown. And her date is unknown. There is no record of her life extant. However, it is genuinely believed that St. Breville was a hermit in the Forest of Dean in Gloucestershire, England, where the village and civil parish of St. Breville's commemorate her. And in just a moment, I will read the entry in. The entry in the group chat goes as follows. St. Breville was a hermit associated with the village of St. Breville in the Forest of Dean in Gloucestershire, England. The entry in the group chat says he is the titular saint of this parish, although little's known about his life, as it was not recorded until 1130. The exact details of his life remain uncertain, but he is recognised as a saint in the Orthodox tradition. Our next saint of the day is Saint Moling, also known as Moling, Milingus, and Darchilia. And he is from the 7th century. Saint Moling received monastic tonsure at Glendalough and went on to succeed Saint Aidan, who we will commemorate on the 31st of January, in the bishopric of Ferns. He later resigned that see and founded an abbey at Achad Canai, which became Temolin or Tekmolin, St. Mullins, where he reposed in AD 697 and was buried. The group chat entry goes as follows. St. Moling, 614 to 697 AD, also known as Moling Luacra, was the second bishop of Ferns in Ireland, and is said to have been one of the 4 great prophets of Erin. He founded a monastery at St. Mullins, County Carlow. Also, in the 7th century, St. Moling is said to have built a church at Mullenakill in County Kilkenny. His feast day is the 17th of June. Tradition about him are preserved in 2 manuscripts, the birth and life of St. Moling and the Barama, both of which expounded on how he ended a cattle tributary imposed by the kings of Tara on the kings of Lein in retribution for an incident when the son of the king of Lein went on a cattle raid to Clonfert, killing several princesses in the act. Our final saint of the day is St. Nectan, and you can see him on the right here. St. Nectan was the eldest of St. Brychan of Brychanioc's 24 children. We obviously commemorated St. Brychan back on the 6th of April. While still a young man, he was inspired to imitate the example of St. Anthony the Great and the other ascetics. To that end, he and several companions left Wales by boat, landing on the northern coast of Devonshire at Hartland. One day, St. Nectan found a stray pig and returned it to his owner. In gratitude, the owner gave St. Nectan 2 cows. which were soon stolen from him. He found the robbers and attempted to teach them about Christ. However, this enraged the robbers, and one of them beheaded St. Nectan. The saint then picked up his head and carried it about 1 kilometre back to his cell, and laid it down near a spring. Seeing this caused the robber who cut St. Nectan's head off to go mad, but the other robber buried the saint. Since then, the site has been a place of many miracles. St. Nectan is the patron of Hartland in Devonshire, and there is an Orthodox house chapel under the Moscow Patriarchate dedicated to St. Simeon and St. Anna at Comber Martin, North Devon, where St. Nectan is venerated. We do have a Troparion here for him, but I will read it after. St. Nectan of Hartland was born in Ireland but moved to Wales when he was young in 423 AD. The eldest son of the 24 children, all of them saints, of King St. Brychan of Brycheiniog, now Brecknock in Wales. Nectan heard of the great hermit of the Egyptian desert, St. Anthony, and was inspired to imitate his way of life. Seeking greater solitude, St. Nectan and his companions left Wales, intending to settle wherever the boat happened to land. Nectan and his companions wound up on the northern coast of Devon at Hartland, where they lived for several years in a dense forest. The saint's family would visit him there on the last day of the year. Later he relocated to a remote valley with a spring. At Hartland, Nectan lived in the solitude of a remote valley where he helped a swineherd recover his lost pigs, and in turn was given the gift of 2 cows. Nectan's cows were stolen. After finding them, he attempted to convert the robbers to the Christian faith. In return, he was attacked by the robbers, who cut off his head. The same authority says that he picked his head up, walked back to his cell before collapsing and dying. Seeing this, the man who killed St. Nectan went out of his mind, but the other thief buried him. From that time, miracles began to take place at St. Nectan's tomb. Local traditions say that whenever the blood from St. Nectan's beheaded fell, that wherever the blood fell, foxgloves grew. Nectan is also associated with St. Nectan's Glen and waterfall at Trevery near Tinnagle in Cornwall, where he is claimed to have spent some time as a hermit. Nectan is believed to have sited his hermitage above the waterfall. According to legend, he rang a silver bell in times of stormy weather to warn shipping of the perils of the rocks at the mouth of the rocky valley. Thank you all for watching. I've been Rita Lazar. I hope you may those saints intercede for us before the righteous judge, but before we do end, I do of course have one last thing to promote / talk about, which is the event at St. Lazar's. This Saturday, which is Saturday the 5th of July, we are celebrating All Saints of Great Britain and Ireland. Divine Liturgy is 9 AM, will be in English. Afterwards, we will sing the Troparions of some of our saints. We will read the lives of our local and important saints. We will sing the English version of Agni Parthene, so that will be good. And there'll be a lot of other things that will happen, Lord willing. Do feel free to come to the liturgy and enjoy a day of celebration of all the saints of Great Britain and Ireland. May the saints that we covered today intercede for us before the righteous judge, that we are all able to bear our crosses. And may the Lord, I hope you all had a very wonderful day. God bless you all, and Amen.